The Taliban are pulling off one of the boldest building sprees the world has ever seen, and almost no one is asking why. Forget the cranes and concrete. This is a fight for control. Control of rivers, control of power lines, control of minerals worth trillions. At the heart of that vision is a project so massive it ranks as the largest in all of Asia. And China isn't just watching, it's already moving to claim its share. Beijing is driving a $60 billion corridor straight into Afghanistan. What comes next won't just change this country, it could reshape the entire region.
That doesn't require approval from anyone else. It doesn't come with foreign conditions, loans, or outside strings attached. If the Taliban want to make a statement about independence, water is the lever they can pull. That's why up north, in the flatlands by the Amu Darya, they're digging the Kosh-Tepe Canal, a channel so massive that if you drove from New York City to Philadelphia and back, you still wouldn't cover its length. This isn't a blueprint waiting on funding. It's a real canal already carving through the desert. The starting point is Kaldar, a district pressed up against the Amu Darya, the great river that doubles as the border with Uzbekistan. From there, the canal cuts west, mile after mile, into dry ground that has never seen steady irrigation. On paper, the numbers are jaw-dropping: 177 miles long, about 330 to 350 feet wide, and nearly 30 feet deep. That's not a trench, it's a man-made river. The promise is even bigger. With water running through it, more than 1.3 million acres of desert could be turned into farmland. Imagine wheat fields swaying where dunes once stretched, melons filling village stalls, and animal feed grown close to home instead of hauled across borders. For a country where food insecurity shapes nearly every political decision, that dream hits close to the bone. What makes the Kosh-Tepe Canal even startling is the speed. Phase 1 opened in October of 2023. Just over a year later, in December of 2024, officials were already saying the second phase was 90% done. Local reporters described an army of workers and machines spread across the project: 4,000 to 6,000 laborers, more than 2,600 excavators, bulldozers, and trucks, all running day and night. The Taliban's state-owned National Development Corporation is in charge, and every statement they make hits the same note: no foreign loans, no outside money. This is ours. We're building it with our own hands. So what does the price tag look like? Since late 2022, one number has stuck: about $684 million. That's the estimate for building the main canal and all the works tied to it. But whether that cost stays the same is anyone's guess. The project isn't following a fixed calendar. It's moving as fast as money and machines allow. Officials sometimes say late 2020s for completion, but on the ground, it's clearly about momentum, not deadlines. However you frame it, this is the biggest earth-moving job Afghanistan has tried in decades, and that scale brings up the question everyone asks: how much water will it actually take? The Amu Darya River isn't a simple faucet you can just turn on. Its flow swells in spring when the mountain snows melt and shrinks in late summer when drought hits. Even so, studies have put numbers to it. A US-backed survey and later reviews suggested the Kosh-Tepe Canal could grab anywhere from 8 to 20% of the river's yearly flow. That's not small. It's the kind of slice that can shift entire regions. And here's the twist: that same water is what Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan depend on to grow their cotton and grain. It's also the water that once fed the Aral Sea before decades of diversion turned it into a salty desert. So the neighbors are nervous. Downstream, even a 15% drop at the wrong time can mean losing an entire harvest. Building a canal is one thing, shuffling water across borders is another. And then there's the desert itself. Moving water through sand is like pouring it through a sieve. Unlined canals leak. Engineers call it seepage.
On top of that, hot, dry air pulls water away through evaporation. In northern Afghanistan, unlined dirt canals can lose anywhere from 20 to 50% of their flow before reaching a single crop. The fix is lining the Kosh-Tepe Canal with stone, concrete, or plastic sheeting, but that slows the build and drives up costs.
Satellite images from late 2023 already showed a giant pool forming beside one stretch of the canal. Afghan engineers said it was on purpose, a way to recharge groundwater. Critics said it was proof of weak banks and leaks. Either way, the physics are simple. If you dig fast through sand, you'll battle seepage, erosion, and sudden breaks unless you reinforce. If the Taliban manage it, the payoff inside Afghanistan is obvious. The canal runs through northern provinces like Balkh, Jaujan, and Farab, places with flat farmland and decent soil, but never enough water. With irrigation, wheat is the first big winner. It grows in cooler months, fills bellies, and cuts down on imports. Once wheat is steady, orchards and animal fodder can follow. The Taliban's message to its people is simple: grow your own food, depend less on foreign grain, and give young men work in the fields so they don't have to leave the country or pick up a gun. The timing matters even more because of the opium ban in 2022. Whole areas that once grew poppy have already shifted to wheat and other legal crops. Aid agencies warned in 2023 and 2024 that farmers need reliable water and better seeds if they're going to survive that change. The canal, if it works, could fill that gap. But there's a snag. Afghanistan doesn't have a legal share of the Amu Darya. Back in the Soviet years, Moscow set quotas for its republics. After independence, the Central Asian states created the Interstate Commission for Water Coordination, the ICWC, to manage the Amu and Sir Darya. Afghanistan was never part of that system, and it still isn't. That means no official share, no agreements, and no clear way to settle disputes in a dry year. Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan have already called for talks, but the digging hasn't slowed. Right now, it's like sticking a new straw into a drink. Everyone else is already sharing without asking permission. On the ground, the technical challenges pile up. A canal this wide needs constant compaction to stop the banks from slumping. Leave it unlined and you accept that maybe half the water could vanish into the ground. Line it and efficiency can jump above 90%, but the cost soars too. And then there's salt. In desert soils, natural salts sit just below the surface. If waterlogging sets in, salts creep upward and ruin farmland. The only way to stop it is to build drains and manage salt from the start. These aren't exotic tricks, they're standard irrigation basics. What's different here is the scale, the speed, and the political weight pressing every decision. And the canal isn't the whole story. Controlling water also means storing it. That's where dams come in. And one in particular, Bakshabad in Farah province, has drawn attention. If completed, it would rise about 266 feet and hold more than 1 million acre-feet of water. To picture that, imagine 1 million acres of land covered in water 1 foot deep. The dam would also spin a small hydropower unit, producing around 30 megawatts. For Farah's dry plains, that means water for tens of thousands of acres and steady power for pumps, cold storage, and small factories. But Bakshabad is not a new idea. It has been promised and stalled for years. In 2024, Taliban officials said work was moving again, with new roads being carved and cofferdams rising. The problem is geography. The Farah Rud, the river feeding the dam, flows into the Helmand system, which eventually crosses into Iran's Sistan Basin and the fragile Hamoun wetlands. That pulls Iran straight into the fight. The only treaty on record is from 1973, giving Iran about 665,000 acre-feet of water each year, plus a goodwill allowance. Since then, droughts, new Afghan projects, and political shifts have kept tensions alive. Every dam on the Helmand, whether Kamal Khan in the south or now Bakshabad, becomes part of that dispute. Downstream, Iranian farmers and fishers point to shrinking wetlands and choking dust storms and blame Afghanistan's upstream works.